Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the Toshiba Satellite E45t series A4300. This is a ultra-portable with a 14-inch capacitive touchscreen display and a backlit island-style keyboard. It offers the 4th generation Intel Core i5 processor, which also is coupled with 6 GB of DDR3 RAM, along with a 750 GB hard drive with 32 gigs of built-in flash SSD for quicker boot up times. Now this is not exactly the top of the line ultra portable, and it also is slightly aging. It came out 2 years ago, so if you look on Amazon or eBay today, you should find it for under $500, and so we'll be mostly discussing whether it's still a worthwhile purchase here in 2017 compared to the original retail price of around $800 or so. So the E45t series was never meant as the top of the line ultra portable, even when it was first conceived. It was meant as an affordable option with good specs, solid performance, but doesn't cost over $1,000. If we take a quick look at the design of the hardware first, it still is very well constructed. The front of the device is constructed out of this aluminum material that feels quite sleek, although this isn't a silent ultra portable, so there are still running fans because of the hard drive, so you still kind of hear that background fan, so it's not quite as lightweight as more modern ultra portables are. If we take a quick look at some of the ports along the sides, you can see we have access to the standard Toshiba charging port. There's a USB 2.0 port, a 3.5mm headphone, as well as a mic input, a full-size SD card reader, and since this is an ultra portable, there is no DVD or CD reader. There are an array of LED lights that tells you the status of the computer on the front, and on the right-hand spine, you have access to 2 USB 3.0 ports, a full-size HDMI port, and a full Ethernet port for wired internet connectivity. The back of the laptop features ventilation grills for the running fan to dissipate heat, and more importantly, there's this textured and grooved plastic, which is common on most of the Toshiba's Satellite line of consumer-oriented laptops. You can see areas where they were able to cut down on costs a little bit, such as on this back, where it doesn't have to be aluminum or metal anymore, since you don't really tend to see it or touch it as often. So this is something to really quickly point out, areas where they were able to kind of cut down on the costs. So let's open up this laptop. You can see the hinge is very typical, just one on either side. And the touchscreen display itself, again, measures 14 inches. It's a typical 720p panel, so it's not 1080p, it's not 4K. Again, areas where they were to reduce the cost ever so slightly. What I do like about this laptop, though, is its trackpad and keyboard. It uses this Elan trackpad, which offers multi-touch support. It has a very generous size, as you can see here, so it's quite large and it's very comfortable to use, very clicky and responsive, and there's also dedicated controls at the bottom for left and right. You can see again the Core i5 advertisement on the side. The palm rest is made out of the same aluminum material as the front lid of the laptop, so it's very comfortable to rest your hands on here and to start typing. Again, the keyboard itself is backlit, although the lighting is a little bit on the dim side. There's only one lighting mode here, but it definitely helps if you're on an airplane, let's say, and it's night and you have the lights nearby, the cabin is dimmed, or if you're typing at night in general, you can see these keys really easily, and it's a nice white glow effect that you can turn off, turn on automatically, and then start typing. The keyboard here is basically full size. It's tactile, it's island style, which is fairly responsive. I like its layout. You have access to not that many non-typical keys, although the top here does feature a dedicated row for media controls like play, pause, volume controls, in addition to screen brightness, and there's a typical Windows key as well as arrow keys on the side. What you do lose here is a dedicated numpad, since this is a fairly small compact laptop, so if you are entering a lot of text, you probably have to plug in your own keyboard. Looking at the display, again, it's a glossy 14-inch panel with an edge-to-edge glass, so it does feel quite sleek and responsive as far as navigating around the interface is concerned. You can see that the default OS is still set at Windows 8.1, which I don't think is a huge problem, just because the touchscreen on here really is very sensitive and easy to use, and it makes a bit more sense since you do have a touch-based input method, even if the hinge can't rotate 360 degrees, and the fact that you'll probably be using the trackpad more than the touchscreen for most applications, but you can of course update to Windows 10 for free if you want to have a more traditional desktop-like experience. Overall, it's a very sleek and responsive UI. There are no real lag that we encountered, which is to be expected with a Core i5 chipset coupled with 6 gigs of RAM. I think that even in 2017, these are respectable specs, especially for a mid-tier slash budget tier ultra portable that you'll be looking at. Storage also isn't an issue with 750 gigabytes. You'll have plenty of space for media if you want to store that. And the only real con that I had is since it does use a real hard drive, you can kind of hear the sound if you listen very closely, and if you kind of shake the laptop, or if you're always handling and moving it when you are using it, it does not feel quite as comfortable as a SSD, which is silent, and it just feels a bit sleeker in the day-to-day use. But overall, very snappy already in terms of boot up time. Takes less than 5 seconds to completely wake up and then get into this main UI. So let's take a quick look at some of the other applications you might be using this for, such as browsing the web. So if we type on the keyboard, again, the backlight pops on automatically, and there is access to Bluetooth in addition to Wi-Fi, and no real complaints there as far as how that works. And of course, if we close out of this button, we can see that the main page does load up very quickly with no any checkerboarding or anything like that. Everything is quite smooth and lucid. Same thing with pinching and zooming in and out of your pages. So very great in terms of interacting with touch. It supports up to 10 fingers. And if we kind of open up, I guess, a paint program, can also do a quick test of that. What I will say is that to conserve on battery power, it tends to go onto this balanced or eco mode a few times here and there. So if you want to get the best performance out of it, you do have to turn on high performance mode yourself by tapping on the bar at the bottom here and going to the battery status and then right clicking, and you can turn on high performance mode, especially if you're charging it or leaving it plugged in. So in terms of battery performance, it's still quite good. As an ultra portable, we expect that, but this device will last you for roughly 7 hours. If you get a used model, I would expect 5 to 6 hours on a single run, which is good enough for playing back a few videos, for some emailing, editing, as well as some work here and there. Now, when it comes to more graphically intensive and demanding applications, I would say that it still works well, but don't expect it to perform, in the same caliber as a desktop-grade Core i5 chipset, which is more power-intensive and clocked at a higher, CPU speed. So that will obviously make the performance better. But on this model, it's more meant as an energy-efficient variant of the Core i5, which is why if you are running, let's say, Photoshop or too many power-intensive games, it will still lag on you occasionally, and you'll definitely notice that here and there as you navigate around, even though it does have quite a bit of RAM and a decent speed in terms of general navigation and moving around things. So in terms of the tile interface, you can see that there's not too much bloatware installed by Toshiba, which is a good thing. The display has good viewing angles, so in terms of media consumption, no complaints as far as watching videos, even though it doesn't have 4K resolution. There is Skype pre-installed, which takes advantage of the webcam on the front, which is 1.3 megapixels, but it performs well even under low light situations, so it does a pretty good job for video chatting purposes. You have access to the standard Windows widgets for weather, news, maps for navigation, and there's also a few proprietary Toshiba Star apps, such as their own version of a media player that works well with various codecs like MPEG-4, AVI, things like that. There's also some games, or some demo versions of games, I should say. It does come included with Norton Studio and a trial version of Norton Security, which will last you for about a year before you have to renew it, so there is some protection out of the box. And there's also quick start icons for eBay, Hulu, Intel's Experience Center, just some advertisement there, and there's also, again, Microsoft Office trial versions installed, although if you want the full version, you have to install it yourself. Sliding down on Windows 8 or Windows 8.1 gives you a full list of the applications, and as a quick refresher, you can also swipe between the main screens by opening up the charms on the right here to toggle back between the pages, and of course cycle between open applications by swiping. It's a pretty intuitive and easy to use UI, especially with touch enabled. I think that it's slightly stronger than Windows 10, but if you are really used to working and if productivity is your number one aim, then Windows 10 will be more efficient than Windows 8 to use without a touch enabled device. But on here, I think that Windows 8.1 runs well enough, which is why I haven't updated the default operating system. So essentially that's it as far as the main tasks and the main applications are concerned. I have to say that as far as general day-to-day usage, I was still pleasantly surprised by how snappy and well the E45T works. Although it's not perfect, and you can definitely tell a few areas where Toshiba were able to cut down on costs, such as a display with a standard resolution and also a regular hard drive component and a plastic base, the general performance as well as the day-to-day use and how the laptop feels and how fast it really boots up, as well as how solid the construction for the most part feels, is really, I think, worthwhile if you're looking for a good mid-tier ultra portable here in 2017 and you want something that's a slightly lower cost than what you would pay for an all-new model. And this still works quite well for most web browsing, media consumption tasks. Photoshop, again, will open and it will load if you kind of close up the background apps in my testing. So that's just something to quickly point out. Just make sure you don't have too many apps running and it will still function as you would expect. There isn't a pressure-sensitive Wacom-based pen for input, so that's something you have to get yourself by form of a plug-and-play USB-based pressure-sensitive art tablet if you are a artist, so something to quickly keep in mind, but otherwise a very good touch 2-in-1 computer. You can learn more information about this in our throwback article, but for now this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been our throwback review of the Toshiba Satellite E45t here in 2017. Still a pretty good mid-tier ultra-portable 14-inch laptop.